Yo, hello all you beautiful people out there. I hope you have had or are having a fantastic day. If you're new around here, welcome. My name is Salam, the teenager who talks about teenage stuff because there simply isn't enough of it on the internet. If you are new around here, I'd appreciate it so much if you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and turn on your post notifications. It really helps support the channel. Okay guys, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret, but you have to promise to not make fun of me, yeah? I started a TikTok account. I never thought those words would come out of my mouth until a couple of days ago. At Salam Bar, if you do want to follow me for student-related content and other shenanigans that I don't put on YouTube, you can find on TikTok. Anyway, let's get on with today's video and not plugging myself. Thank you so much to Mahua Mania for recommending this video. Really appreciate it. It's about IB command terms. Now, don't know if I'm the most qualified person to be telling you about IB command terms because even teachers are still trying to kind of figure it out. That's how complex it is because, you know, it's the IB. They love making things difficult. For those of you who don't know what command terms are, I don't blame you because it's not a common day thing for non-IB students. When you go to sit in an exam, when you see a question, you'll usually have something highlighted in bold or italicized or underlined. That's the command term. It usually goes along the lines of something. Draw, explain, discuss, interpret, all those lovely words that actually tell you what to do. So why are these command terms useful for us? Well, they tell you three things. First thing is they tell you how to answer the question. Without a command term, you won't know what to do for the question. So if you got photosynthesis without the command term, are you supposed to explain photosynthesis? Are you supposed to draw photosynthesis? What are you supposed to do with photosynthesis? So that's where they come in handy. They actually tell you what to do. Second thing they're really good at is telling you how long your responses need to be. So based on the command term, you can gauge how much you need to be writing for your answer. And also, they're very good at telling you how many marks the question is worth. So command terms that require a longer response are usually going to be worth a lot more marks. However, your marks are also given to you, but it does help in identifying how long your response needs to be. So those are the three things that command terms are useful for. Now, there are a crap ton of command terms out there. Like, there are a lot. So we'll only be going over a couple in today's video. We're gonna be going over a little over 10 because I've bunched a couple together, but there are 10 command terms that appear most commonly. I've picked those, and they go from simplest to most ridiculous and impossible. But if you are looking for the full list of command terms, I'll put a link to a PDF that I found online that details what all of them are. You can go through all of them and make sure you're super familiar with them before you go sit an exam. As I said, we're gonna start with the simplest and go to the most complex, with number one being state. State is as easy as it gets, my guy. If you see a state question, go like, yeah, well, unless you don't know the answer to that state question, which happens. It happens a lot. It's happened to me. It's happened to a lot of my other friends. State, what does it actually require you to do? Give a one-word answer or give a number. You simply just state the answer. That's it. It's as easy as that. The big mistake a lot of students make with state questions is that they explain themselves, they justify. Trust me, you're not getting marks for it. If it says state, state the goddamn answer. Don't explain. You're wasting your time that you could be using on other questions. And also, with each of these command terms, I'll tell you how much they're approximately worth. So for a state question, it's usually gonna be worth 1, maybe 2 marks. 2 marks is pushing it though. Number 2 on this list is define. So similar to state, when you get a define question, it's a little more tricky than a state question because it requires you to recall a definition that you've learned in class. So for example, you'll get a lot of these in economics or in humanities, you know, define gross domestic product, for example. See, you need to be able to recall the definition of gross domestic product. So it's not as easy as a state question, but it's also going to be on that 1 mark, 2 mark sort of level. To make sure that you nail define questions every single time, write a cheat sheet. A cheat sheet is essentially a list of all the key terms. You guys can find these online, you can make your own. Write down all the key terms for every topic. Make sure you know those definitions because trust me, usually worth 1 or 2 marks, but sometimes the 1 or 2 marks can be the difference between a 6 and a 7. So make sure you get these easy marks. Number 3, we're gonna be pairing label and annotate together. So a lot of students get these two mixed up. I don't blame you if you do because it's a little bit tricky. When you're given a label question, I'll put an example of a label on screen right now, but whenever you're asked to label something, make sure you draw an arrow from wherever, blank space on your diagram, to the place where you're labeling it. Make sure your line touches it, you could draw an arrow to it, and then you just write what it is. That's what a label is. So that's all you need to do if you're asked to label. However, annotate, on the other hand, that's a little different. It requires a little bit more information. Draw your label like you would for your label question, but then you also need to provide some extra detail. For example, a diagram in biology, maybe it's of a unicellular organism. You need to draw all your labels, but then you need to also annotate it and write next to each label what that organelle does, for example. That's just a biology example. This can apply to any other topic. So make sure you give that extra bit of information, be that a definition. See, again, these definitions are going to come in handy. Maybe a definition, maybe a little explanation of what that organelle does, or sorry, not organelle, maybe a little explanation of what that X label does. That will get you your annotate marks. So make sure you read it carefully. Is it asking you to label, or is it asking you to annotate? A lot of students get caught out on this one. Don't be one of them. Another tip regarding the marks. So if it's a label or annotate question for 5 marks, make sure you're labeling or annotating 5 things. The marks for these sort of questions will be dictated by how much you need to label. Keep an eye out on the marks to see how many labels you need to make. Number 4, we have compare. Compare is another really interesting one. It's getting a little bit more difficult now, as you can probably see. But when you're asked to compare, you're asked to list the differences and the similarities. Emphasis on the and. A lot of students just write the differences between the two things they're asked to compare between. Don't make this mistake, because you can get easy marks for writing similarities. I used to make this mistake all the time. When I saw compare, I'd always go like, oh, what are the differences? But then I'd find I don't have enough differences to meet the amount of marks that I need to get. So make sure you list the differences and the similarities. Now, when making a comparison, it's crucial that you actually write a comparison. Many students make the mistake of saying, oh, X has YZ amount of things. Don't do that. I'll give you an example of a comparison. Samantha has 3 apples. Jonathan also has 3 apples. That is a comparison. Do not write what I'm about to say in an exam. Samantha has 3 apples. That is not a comparison. You need to mention one thing, and then you also need to compare it to the other, be that a similarity or a difference. Again, there isn't a universal number of marks compare questions are worth. They're worth however many comparisons that you need to give. Number 5 is we're going to be moving on to outline. When you're asked to outline something, you're asked to give a brief account of topic X. Outline is a step up from state. So when you're given an outline question, make sure you write maybe your definition and then give some explanation to it, some background. Outline questions usually have a very good mark scheme. So when your examiner is looking at your outline response, they'll usually be able to give you the marks for whatever explanation you provide. So give a brief account of. Outline questions can be worth anywhere from 2 to 4 marks, so just make sure to keep an eye on that to gauge how much you need to be writing. For number 6, we're going to be bunching 3 command terms together: deduce, comment, and interpret. These 3 are very similar and they're usually used interchangeably. So when you do see one of them, write down a conclusion from whatever information you're being presented. That's usually my key. You're usually asked to make some sort of inference on the data that you're presented. So whatever you're given, look at it, see, are there any connections? Are there any possible links? And write those down. This one applies more to comment questions rather than anything. But another tip that I usually like to incorporate when I'm in my exams is when you see comment, interpret, or deduce, again, more likely for comment, look at the data you're being presented, write down something that you see from that data, but then also write down something from your previous knowledge that you have learned in class. Make a reference to the information you're given as well as a potential reason behind it. Well, this reason you'll learn in class, so you'll know what it is. And again, from past experience, these questions range anywhere from 2 to 4 marks. Yes, now it's time to get on to my favorites. Not really my favorites. These are the ones that I absolutely despise. With number 7, describe, ladies and gentlemen. When you're asked to describe something, you better write down what you see. Describe literally means say what you see. If you're given a graph, describe that graph until you literally cannot describe that graph no more. Oftentimes when you're given a described question in the sciences maybe or in humanities, it can be based on content. So when you are given something like this, write down what you know on that content. But in my experience, described questions usually come with some sort of data or some sort of visual information that you can describe. And with described questions, I usually see them range anywhere between 4 and 6 marks. So that's what you're looking to achieve. Next up, number 8, we have analyze. When you're asked to analyze something, you're being asked to break it apart, break it down into its fundamentals and recognize any patterns or any trends that you see in the data. Again, these questions will be quite obvious, but another tip is to include your background information. You go to school for a reason. I hope. So when you do get an analyze question, make sure you're ripping apart whatever information they're giving you, but also including some background knowledge. Again, analyze questions, I've seen them worth maybe 4 to 8 marks. I'd probably say that's the range. Number 9, we have discuss versus evaluate. We're going to be grouping these two again because they're quite similar. Where they differ is with discuss questions, you need to give a balanced argument from both sides. Make sure you're expressing all the points of view. Discuss, maybe you'll see more so in humanities. With evaluate questions, you'll also see it in the humanities, but you'll most likely see it in the sciences. When you're evaluating, however, on the contrary to discuss, you need to talk about the implications, the pros and the cons, the positives and the negatives, the wider implications on society especially. This is more your MYP sort of stuff. You don't really see evaluate questions in the IB that much anymore. I don't think so. I haven't seen an evaluate question for a while, but make sure when you're discussing, you give all the points of views. When you're evaluating, pros, cons, wider implications. That's your key, guys. And then of course, number 10, my favorite, explain. I'm gonna have PTSD from explain after I finish the IB, I can already see. But when you're asked to explain, you're asked to give literally, quote unquote, a detailed account of. Explain questions are probably the most hit or miss questions that I've ever seen in my life. So when you are asked to explain, my rule of thumb is that write down literally everything you know, again, within reason about that topic, and hope that you get marks. Because that is the only way it works. Trust me, explain questions have the most whack mark schemes I've ever seen in my entire life. So another great thing about explain questions is that you could literally have the same question rewritten twice from past IB papers, of course, with 2 different mark schemes. Let me give you an example. You can have a question asking you to explain the process of cell respiration, and then another explain question asking you to explain the process of cell respiration in eukaryotes. Literally very, very similar answers, minute details, but completely different mark schemes. This is what I'm saying, hit or miss on explain questions. Write down everything you know, again, within reason pertaining to that question, and you should be good. Explain questions are almost always 6 to 8 marks. I've never seen an explain question lower than 6 marks. If you guys know of any, comment down in the description below so I can laugh at them in pain. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. That's gonna be about it. Remember, go over these key terms, make sure you know, or key terms, go over these command terms, make sure you know what they mean before you go into an exam. You should be pretty good. Listen to the advice I gave you guys today so you know what to put down for each of these questions, and you should be a-okay. Thank you so much for watching today's video, guys. I hope you had an amazing weekend. I hope you have an even better week. Students on your spring break, it's coming to an end. Couple more days, well, literally 1 more day. I know, very sad, but all good things must come to an end. Summer is on the way though, but not before a lot of exams. So thank you guys once again. Have a great one, and I will see all of you later.